Welcome back, club members, to the Health Ed Club. Again, I'm Jasmine, and today we'll be talking about lupus. May is Lupus Awareness Month, so of course, I'm going to be bringing you information about what lupus is, who's most at risk, the symptoms, and how we can do more to help and support those who have been diagnosed with lupus. And later on, we actually have somebody coming on, Javon Bracey, and she's going to be discussing and sharing more about her story and her journey of living with lupus and how to get involved. So, what is lupus? According to the CDC, lupus is a chronic autoimmune disease, which basically means your body can attack its own tissues. And for each person who's diagnosed, symptoms can present very differently, which is part of the reason why it can take up to several years, sometimes 6, just to be diagnosed with lupus. So, per the CDC, lupus symptoms can include muscle and joint pain, fever, rashes, chest pain, hair loss, sun or light sensitivity, kidney problems, mouth sores, prolonged or extreme fatigue, anemia, memory problems, blood clotting, and also eye disease can occur. And there are actually 4 types of lupus that can occur. The most common is systemic lupus erythematosus. Then you have cutaneous erythematosus, which basically means it's only going to affect the skin. There is drug-induced lupus, which is going to usually occur temporarily following the use of a particular drug. And there is a list of about 100 types of drugs that can lead to drug-induced lupus. And finally, you have neonatal lupus, which occurs in neonates or newborns. So, who's most at risk for developing lupus? 1, women are most at risk. According to lupus.org, 9 out of 10 persons diagnosed with lupus are women. 2, women of color are also most at risk for developing lupus. This includes African American women, Asian American, Native American, Hispanic or Latino, and Pacific Islander women as well. 3, people who have a family history of lupus are also most at risk. So joining us now is Javon Bracey. She is a young Black woman from New Orleans, Louisiana. She received her Bachelor of Arts in English from Xavier University of Louisiana. And she also went on to receive a Master of Divinity from the Lift School of Theology. And now she's currently pursuing a Master of Arts in Clinical Mental Health Counseling. So let's go, educated Black woman.
I'm collecting the degrees like infinity stones. That's what Twitter says.
I'm here for it. She's also here today to talk about her journey of living with lupus and about the Perpetuity Project, which is a nonprofit organization that she has curated to spread more awareness about lupus and to raise funds for those living with lupus as well. All right. So thank you for joining us today and being open with sharing your journey. And yeah, I'm looking forward to, learning more.
Thank you for curating this space. And I'm excited too.
All right, so let's get started. All right, so tell us a little bit about more just of kind of the start of everything, maybe like what symptoms you were going through, like what made you say, let me go talk to the doctor, like something's wrong, or kind of bring us back to the beginning.
Yeah, so in a very like New Orleans way, I like to say it all started with a pot of gumbo, which is the truth. So one Thanksgiving, it was like Thanksgiving, like 2015, had a pot of gumbo and started like experiencing anaphylaxis. So I was like, oh my gosh, I'm allergic to shellfish, which I was expecting because both of my parents are allergic to shellfish. Okay. And so after that, I started seeing an allergist. The first allergist that I went to was cool, and she ran all the tests and told me what I was allergic to, but I really her bedside manner was not great. And so this was one of the first instances, I guess, of me being an adult and advocating for myself as a patient. So I decided to switch allergists. And the second allergist I found was actually a Black woman, a Xavier grad. And so I started seeing her, started seeing her, and she ran all the same tests and kind of came to the same conclusions for herself and put me on a medication regimen. And for the first few months, I was doing frequent follow-ups. So just in our conversation, she was like, Javon, like something else is going on. I don't know what it is, but something else is going on. So my dad has had thyroid issues in the past. And so she started running tests for that. When that came back normal, she was like, okay, I'm just going to run like a super comprehensive blood test for like everything. And I was like, have at it, as long as the insurance covers it, you know, do what you want. So she ran all of the tests and my ANA test came back positive. And she was like, you need to go see a rheumatologist like tomorrow. And I was like, a rheuma what? I don't know. I don't know what that is. And so she was like, call your primary care doctor and they can refer you out. So I said, okay. Called my primary care doctor, got a referral. And fortunately, I was able to pretty quickly get a referral and get an appointment. Because sometimes, of course, with specialists, you know, they are booked.
Backed up for months.
Yes, for months. And so I was able to get an appointment with the rheumatologist. And he essentially sat me down and was like, tell me everything that you've been experiencing over the past at least 5 years. So if you want to go back a little bit further, sure. But he said, like, tell me every ache, every pain, every like random thing that has ever happened, every hospital visit, every doctor's visit, just tell me. So again, this was fall. By this point, it was fall 2016. So the furthest back I went was 2012. Summer of 2012, I experienced, it was essentially a virus and an infection at the same time, like kind of inexplicably randomly happened. Was in the emergency room, all that kind of stuff. And then nothing really happened after that. Just random out of the blue. Then the following summer.
They didn't tell you anything like, oh, it's probably this.
No, there was no, right. It was just a fluke with my immune system, which is, that's why that was like the first thing that I kind of chronicle is a part of lupus. The following summer, I started experiencing like joint pain. So I was in Washington, D.C. for a fellowship. I was emergency room, urgent care, all kind of stuff while I was there. And they thought it was tendonitis. They also told me, like, if you just lose a little bit of weight. And I was like, first of all, I can't stand up. Like, you trying to tell me to go get on a treadmill. I can't even walk. Right. My pain is mostly in my ankles, actually. So I have the most pain in my ankles and it kind of radiates up. So that was right before my senior year of college. My senior year of college, I started experiencing hair loss. So my hair was just kind of breaking off, you know, again, randomly. And I also started experiencing fatigue, symptoms of fatigue, which I chalked up to just being super involved on campus and off campus in the community. And I was like, yeah, I'm just tired because I'm doing too much. Graduated and those symptoms continued, as well as ulcers. I would get ulcers in my nose and my mouth, super painful. Just randomly, they would come and go. I never had any skin rashes or anything, but my scalp started to become, I was never tender-headed as a kid, but my scalp started to become more sensitive. My white blood cell count was super low. So I'm telling him all of these things, all of these like things that I'm thinking are random, right? Headaches, just for the fatigue was probably the worst, just because I was so tired all the time and didn't know what was going on. So he was like, okay, I'm gonna run all the blood tests that your allergist ran and some more. So he ran all of those blood tests and kind of talked to me about what the symptoms were and things like that. And that's the point. For October 2016 is when I started being treated for lupus, as well as the rheumatological symptoms, the rheumatoid arthritis. So so that was sort of the journey to diagnosis.
All right. I know, like, I've heard that it can sometimes take years for people to receive a diagnosis. So what you say was different with your situation? Because it sounds like it happened fairly quickly for you in terms of.
So I think, so the average is about 6 years from people experiencing symptoms to experiencing, to receiving a diagnosis. And I think part of it was just me, first of all, the Black woman who was my allergist made a difference. She saw that something was not right. And although my primary care doctor knew about much of the stuff that I had been experiencing, she was the one who was like, you need to go see a rheumatologist. So that's the first thing, having a physician who advocated for me. And then also advocating for myself too, right? So like, and keeping track of things. So all of the stuff that I was experiencing, even though at the time I thought it was random, seeking out treatment and being aware of what was going on with my body, being as in tune as possible with what was going on with my body. Nevertheless, I still did experience what, some may call, fat phobia and medical racism and, other forms of discrimination and bias based on how I show up in the room. But I think the doctor advocating for me and me just being persistent were things that definitely pushed me toward diagnosis, more quickly, I guess.
I think it's also like a topic that's becoming more prevalent within the conversation around medicine with patient advocacy, especially within Black communities, and them like not considering, Black women pain to be real, or because somehow we're not human enough to feel pain. But
and people thinking, our threshold for pain is higher and all this other stuff. Yeah. So, and that's a part of why I even founded the organization, because I feel like knowledge is power. And so the more, I've walked into offices for the first time and asked questions with a sense of clarity and whatever. And people are like, are you like in the medical field? And I'm like, no, I'm not. Couldn't be further from it. English degree, divinity degree, couldn't be further from the medical field. But it's that empowerment that's like, you're not gonna mess over me in this conversation. I'm gonna ask the questions. I'm gonna, you know the language that you're using and use that language as well. So yeah, those things definitely matter.
Is there a particular occurrence that happened that really stood out to you in terms of dealing with like racial or implicit bias?
I don't think there's one occurrence. I think just generally, either not having the dots connected, even though I'm communicating this whole story. Like I said, my primary care physician knew that my white blood cell count was low, knew I was experiencing, fatigue. And that was never a direction that he even pointed me to in terms of seeing a rheumatologist. And then also just directly, especially when I first started experiencing the pain in my ankles, being told that it was just tendonitis and that if I lost weight, that things would get better. So those things definitely stood out. I've had other experiences in the hospital. I could say like I've definitely been blessed to have mostly positive experiences where I did feel like people were listening to me. Yeah. So, but yeah. So no one really super negative experience, but those things do stand out.
Okay. And I know, like, especially around the time when COVID happened and with the hydrochloroquine being like primary treatment option for people with lupus, I guess, how was your experience and how did you feel dealing with that? And basically like the treatment option was in jeopardy.
Absolutely. That's literally a really succinct way of expressing that. So the hydroxychloroquine started being touted as a magical treatment for COVID by, some people in really high places. And and so what was actually happening was people were not able to get their medication. There were shortages. There were like shipping, issues in terms of getting the medication around. For me, the worst that it got was that I was getting a 90-day supply every time I filled my prescription, but it had to decrease to 30 days. So I was only able to get it 30 days at a time. But there are Facebook groups that I'm in and support groups that I've been a part of that, people really experience some really just detrimental effects and just the fear, right? Like there was all of this unknown around COVID in general, and adding on top of that, potentially not being able to get this medication that is saving your life. So just the emotional toll that took, which really is kind of what was the catalyst for me bringing the Perpetuity Project from just kind of an idea in the back of my mind to, doing a soft launch in March, because at that point, I wanted to get positive information out. I wanted to get accurate information out. I wanted to get encouragement out to people who were experiencing the worst of this pandemic, the worst of the social aspects of this pandemic and the political aspects of this pandemic, as people who are immunocompromised, on top of the fact that their medication was threatened. So yeah, that was it was difficult, it was scary, and it was really frustrating as well.
I can only imagine. And I'm sorry that you have to go through that. Other people as well have to deal with that. You would think that your government will be more supportive, institute policies to help protect, from things like that happening. I just keep doing the work, I guess.
Yeah, and there was an instance where one of the national lupus organizations had a campaign, an online campaign, to write to your senators to get them to put some protections in place for hydroxychloroquine. So people who had been prescribed the medication, by a rheumatologist or some other a nephrologist or some other physician, so that they could get priority for getting the hydroxychloroquine. And that kind of took effect and helped a little bit, but since then it's tapered off. So, but yeah, definitely the advocacy piece, because part of it is connected to politics in our government. So,
and also continuing with talking about treatment, I mean, you also post about your room chronicles and your experiences with going through the infusions. How often do you have to take the infusions?
So I do the infusions once a month. I actually had my May infusion earlier today. So yeah, every 28 days, every 4 weeks, I do the infusions. So it is Benlysta, which is the first FDA approved drug for the treatment of lupus. Hydroxychloroquine, also known as Plaquenil, is an anti-malarial. So it was discovered for the treatment of malaria and just found to be able to treat lupus well. The other drugs are pain medications, so NSAIDs, ibuprofen, things like that, and steroids. As well as I was on another medication called methotrexate, which is essentially chemo in pill form. So though all of those are either like general treatments or symptom treating medications, but Benlysta is a biologic and an immunosuppressive therapy that was developed specifically for lupus. So yeah, every 28 days, every 4 weeks, I go in and get my IV infusion. It can also be administered by auto injectors or syringes that patients can do themselves. And I did that for a little while, but I rather go in once a month and do
I just like to say with like having to stay at home, or if maybe you're like remote,
well,
easier to have the injection.
So the infusions, like if I wanted to like go to Ghana for 6 months, I couldn't do it because I would need to like reset up my infusions out there, blah, 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 blah. So with the auto injectors, it does give you a little bit more flexibility because those get mailed to you and you can, move in that way. But with the infusion, it's just one time, once a month for like a couple hours that I just block off and go and do it and I'm done. So yeah, I think there are pros and cons to the different administrations of it, but the infusion is what I like and what works for me. And I've been on it for 3 years now. So I started when I was in Denver, and yeah, so every 4 weeks for 3 years, been going in there to get my superhero juice.
Did it take a long time to like develop a regimen, or was it something they kind of started you on as soon as you were diagnosed?
Yeah, so my first, let's see, the first thing I started on was the hydroxychloroquine. So I started on that, and 2 pills a day. So either 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening, or 2 at the same time at whatever time. My symptoms were not completely like going away. I was still having some like flares, which I still do now, but so they started me on the methotrexate. So I was doing the methotrexate. So let's see, hydroxychloroquine daily, methotrexate, because the methotrexate is super strong, once a week. The methotrexate is so strong that in order to conceive, you need to be off of the medication for 3 months. Oh, wow. Like totally off the medication for 3 months, because it could cause, severe issues for the baby and for the parent. And yeah, so I know people, and this kind of is where this somewhat intersects with the abortion conversation. I know people who've had to terminate pregnancies because their health and their child's health was in jeopardy because of the side effects from the methotrexate. So anyway, I was on the hydroxychloroquine, I was on the methotrexate, and I was doing well, but I was experiencing some side effects from the methotrexate, which caused me to have to get on another medication. So I did that for a few years. And then my doctor in Denver is the one who suggested getting on to the Benlysta. So at peak, I was on the hydroxychloroquine, the methotrexate, the roommate, which was helping the side effects from the methotrexate, and the Benlysta. Oh. When I started reacting well to the Benlysta, everything was kind of stable. He was like, let's start decreasing the methotrexate and decreasing the roommate until we kind of just slowly taper it down and get you off. So so that's when I kind of started the regimen that I'm on now, with the hydroxychloroquine daily and the Benlysta once a month. Okay. And I take the steroids, the prednisone, and pain medication, meloxicam, every now and then. Whenever I'm experiencing symptoms and pain, I'll take it, but I don't have to take that daily.
You said it's mainly still just like the joints and ankles that are still worse.
Yeah, so I have the arthritis pain in my hands as well, in my hands as well as in my ankles. But that kind of stuff like radiates sometimes, so if I'm experiencing pain in my ankles and I'm, walking or standing too long, it can radiate. I've had it radiate up to my hips and my back, just the pain. So typically, recently, it has not gotten that bad, but yeah.
Yeah, I was about to ask you, like, how does it affect like your day-to-day life? And so,
So day to day, I think I'm at the point right now where I have the best quality of life that I've had, I think, in a while, just like consistently day to day. The least amount of pain and just difficulty navigating each day, least amount of fatigue and things like that. But lupus is extremely unpredictable. It can be impacted by weather changes. So especially like in Denver, when it would be like hot one day and then freezing cold the next and then snowing the next, I would experience, symptoms flaring up then. Overexertion, too much sun exposure, things like that definitely impacted. And so I think, although I'm not experiencing symptoms as regularly and as intensely, what it requires is a level of intention and planning. So I try to buffer, for example, if I know I'm going to have an especially stressful or intense week, the weekend prior, I'll try to kind of like rest, right? Like kind of take it easy. And then also plan to, after that, try to build in some rest as well. Because, too much stress or too much, overexertion can definitely trigger symptoms to happen. So yeah, I think the level of intentionality that's required is necessary, and just planning and being cognizant, and also expressing this to people around me. So like all of my friends and my family know, of course, but my professors, the people I work with professionally, letting them know what's happening with me, so that when I am having to either proactively or responsibly kind of buffer myself and get extra rest or cancel meetings or what have you, people know what's going on.
I like that you shine light on that and brought emphasis to like managing a disease or illness is not just like making sure you take your medication, but it's also managing your environment, managing your time. And I like that you say, tell people around you. I feel like some
Yeah.
people usually don't like to share so much about their personal, life or their medical issues, whether it's due to fear or just, being uncomfortable about it. But like you say, it can really benefit you, especially if you're a student or at work,
Yep.
you need some time off. Yeah.
Exactly. And honestly, it's illegal for people to discriminate against people and to hold people who are disabled. And I do consider myself as a person with a disability. I am disabled. It's illegal for people to discriminate against you and to like hold that against you. And so in some spaces, it's like at school, for example, I have formal documentation on file at the school that says that I have a disability and there are times when I may need grace. It doesn't say grace, but that's what
Yeah.
it says. I have formal documentation from my physician, from my specialist that says that. So yeah, like it's about creating this like ecosystem of support. Some of it has to be super formal, like, I have this on file so that it holds me and those around me accountable. Some of it, thankfully, has just been, conversations that I've had with people who know that this is the truth of what's going on with me. So yeah, definitely, just like you said, it can be difficult, and I think I did struggle with that at first. Um, Embarrassment maybe, or just not wanting people to be all up in my business. I didn't feel equipped enough to have the conversations with people about what was going on with me, so I just didn't talk about it. I was still dealing with my own fears and frustrations. And so for some time, I won't say that at the very beginning, it was like, nope, okay, here's what I need to do. But once I, with therapy and with conversations with my friends and family, reconciled my own emotions around it, I was then able to see the situation more clearly, to see myself more clearly. And to go back to the question before, like what quality of life do I want to live? Right. So I have since earned a degree and a half. I have lived in 2 cities. I have accomplished, starting an organization and working with different organizations and doing all of these things. And that's only possible because I ask for help, because I get all the support that I need, because I communicate my limitations and my needs. So thinking about the quality of life that I want to live and I want to have, and then putting the things in place to ensure that I am able to actually make that happen.
Actually a great time to kind of move into talking about the perpetuity project as we're talking about increasing that conversation and just making sure you're aware of what your needs are, and bringing more awareness. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about that and get started, like what like light bulb went off and say like this has to happen, it has to happen now, take us through that process.
So the first time that I had an idea for an organization was actually in like the fall of 2019. So annually, Lupus Colorado, which is an organization based in Denver, they have a walk where they raise funds for their organization and for the community in Denver. So I started in May of 2019 raising funds through just my personal connections, family, friends, classmates. And for a one-person team, I actually raised enough funds to like win like an award at the walk. So, and I was like, I can do this. Like I can galvanize some people. The other thing I was seeing was, and some of this is by virtue of the fact that Denver is a predominantly white metro area, that there's a disproportionate sort of dynamic where a lot of people in leadership of organizations nationally and on a like city or state level are not Black, are not people of color. There are, now don't get me wrong, there are wonderful organizations, grassroots organizations like my own that are run by people of color, but I think it matters who's having the conversation and how intersectionality and particular lenses are able to be a part of whatever conversation's happening. So when I raised all that money on behalf of Lupus Colorado, I was like, I could do this. And sometimes, you know, although my undergrad degree's in English, like I'll be playing around and say like stuff like Pacifically or whatever. And so perpetuity was just, you know, like a play on terms that just kind of like stuck out in my head, and I would play around and say it. And I was like, okay, maybe that could be something, because purple is the color for lupus awareness. And perpetuity, just thinking about longevity and legacy and living forever through the good work that we do in the world. So I was like, okay, cool. So actually, I saw a tweet. See, yeah, there you go. I saw a tweet from a woman who is an entrepreneur, who said that if you have an idea for something, just buy the domain. If you have an idea for something, even if it's not fleshed out yet, just buy the domain. So when I had that idea, like maybe a week or two after the walk, I bought perpetuity.org. And then I also created the social media accounts, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and an email address. So like fall of 2019, I had all of the like materials, like it was done. You did. But then it's 2020. Yeah, I did the you know, it was this idea, this thought that like, hey, like maybe I can actually do this. And then you know, literally just taking a leap and squatting on the Instagram handle and saying, hey, I'm just gonna take up this space. So anyway, when March 2020 rolls around and all of this stuff is happening around the pandemic, specifically impacting people who are immunocompromised, specifically impacting people who use hydroxychloroquine, I was like, okay, the infrastructure is already built, and let me just do a soft launch. So I was doing blog posts and having conversations with people and things like that, from the perspective of a person with lupus, and people really did, you know, support. And so from there, just continue to expand programming, continue to expand the ways that I've tried to provide support to other people who have lupus. So got a Black-owned company to do t-shirts, Black-owned company to create the logo. And yeah, so we did yoga sessions in 2020 and 2021, rolled out a more robust version of the website. So there have been situations where like there were people who were in the hospital, or right after Hurricane Ida, also provided like direct services to people who are affected by lupus and are affected either by hospitalization or natural disaster. Also just providing one-on-one support to people. So have had many conversations with people who are recently diagnosed or who are thinking that this may be what's going on, just to, again, provide that support and knowledge and empowerment from my perspective, as well as resources. I've also been like a guest panelist on different events and conversations about lupus, about being Black and disabled, about, there was one documentary that I was actually a part of that talked about the medical industrial complex and the connection, sort of the intersection with reparations and like how much Black people are owed based on the ways that our bodies have been abused and commodified and, you know, all that other stuff, and continue to this day. So yeah, so it started with just an idea that, you know, maybe I could do this, to practically kind of getting the little things in order, and from there being prepared to jump into action and just blossoming from there.
Okay, well, I'm personally grateful for you doing that and just taking out your time to devote to wanting to support other people, bring more awareness. Speaking on, you say you did some one-on-one counseling or just talking with people who've been diagnosed with lupus. Is that part of why you wanted to go into the clinical mental health counseling degree?
Somewhat. I think that through the Perpetuity Project, as well as like throughout my life, there have been times where I felt like I was operating in the capacity that I wanted to have more experience, more training to be able to operate in. Also, given my ministry history and my degree in divinity, my hope is to work at the intersection of those two things. And so, with people of faith, with faith communities, with faith leaders, the church has not, in some respects, in some communities, it has, but by and large, we don't always do a good job of having conversations about mental health and being open to and understanding the necessity of mental health, of seeing a therapist, of taking care of our emotional and psychological well-being. So wanting to be a part of, ushering us into a next level of being able to do that and being intentional about how we do that from the pulpit, being intentional about how we do that in conversations and in how we provide resources for our communities and in other ways that, we can't even imagine that. Just being sure that we're prepared to take care of our spiritual, mental, physical, emotional, all of the forms of health that are necessary intentionally. I want to be, intentional about it, not just haphazardly. And again, like I said, myself being equipped to do that work.
Okay, I know you do a lot of stuff from your end with the organization. Are there ways other people can kind of get involved and show support or help bring awareness?
Yeah, so I'm hoping to establish a community advisory board. I have a board, a formal board of trustees for the organization, which was a part of the process of becoming a 501c3, but establishing a community advisory board of people who have lupus, of people who have family members with lupus, who are just contributing to what the programming will look like and things of that nature. Also, I am hoping to have, so May being Lupus Awareness Month, hoping to next May have an in-person event in New Orleans that, celebrates the community and celebrates the work that's being done and also kind of, brings awareness just in general in person. Would need volunteers and things like that for that and people who would donate and people who would support. But in the meantime, one of the things that's happening right now, of course, like I said, Lupus Awareness Month. On Facebook, we have the frame that you can just put on your profile. So people who are curious, just spreading awareness in that way, they're like, lupus, what is that? And then do a quick Google to see what's going on with that. As well as donating to the project right now. So just to ensure that the little things that we're doing, not little, but the sort of micro grassroots things that we're doing can be accomplished in terms of providing that support and paying our little bills and things like that as we begin to plan and prepare for the next kind of phase of how people can get involved. So yeah, and liking, following, sharing on social media. We're at Perpetuity. If you type Perpetuity into any browser, any search engine, any search box on any platform, I'm pretty much the only thing that'll come up.
This is your word.
Yeah, this is trying to do something with the branding, make it unique. So yeah, if you type Perpetuity in on any platform, it'll come up. So just staying engaged and following and sharing, and there's so many people who have said wow, I didn't know that, or wow, I didn't realize that this is what was going on. And so yeah, really that's how people can get involved, by donating, by connecting with us on social media, just to kind of stay tuned to what's going on. And yeah, just helping us to spread the word.
And I'll put all of your social media handles and everything all at the bottom of the screen because cool. I want you to support everybody.
Yes.
All right. Is anything else you want to end this off with or let the people know?
No, I'm grateful to have the opportunity. I'm grateful to have the resources and the support. And I'm grateful to you for the work that you're doing and for holding space and for making time and for extending the invitation. So yeah, I think that's what it takes, right? Is people from where they are doing what they do and collaborating and supporting one another to ensure that we all are equipped with information and tools and resources to live the healthiest life we can. So yeah, I'm really grateful. You know, we've known each other for a while, and that's what it's all about, is connecting to the people who you know who are doing great things. And yeah, so I'm really grateful.
I'm thankful for you for coming on and sharing your story. I can't wait to get the email or message or something that what's happening next May. Put in my calendar today. Like, I have to be in New Orleans for Divine. So yeah, I'm excited to see what comes next for you and your organization. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you.
Come to the Health Ed Club. See you guys next month. So given what we've discussed today about lupus, I believe it's really important that we're doing our best to be advocates and supporters of those with lupus and providing awareness and education, whether it's through educational programs, through just sharing information on social media platforms, and even getting involved with organizations that are providing opportunities and events to promote lupus as well. So thank you guys for joining us today, and please tune in for more. Like and subscribe. Thank you.